So the first out, Elly de la Cruz is a problem. I mean, in my mind, he's got to be one of the, I don't know, 3 or 4 most fun players to watch in Major League Baseball. And he hasn't really blossomed into like a star yet, but he's just such an interesting player, right? Right now, sitting at an 829 OPS, 9 homers, 22 RBIs. He's hitting 256. So the numbers certainly are not like off the chart amazing. But one of the things that we do kind of want to touch on is Major League leading 30 stolen bases already in 47 games. He's been caught stealing only 5 times. So, I mean, listen, the question really is he going to reach 100? I think the answer, if he stays healthy, is undeniably yes. I just don't see, I just think he's too athletic. Like, when I told you this pre-show, when I saw Elly de la Cruz had 30 stolen bases and he was caught stealing 5 times, I was surprised he was caught 5 times. Like, I just think, like, he's so, like, not only is he unbelievably fast, but his legs are so unbelievably long that, like, the guy goes from first to second base in 4 or 5 steps. Like, I just don't know that, like, I didn't think it was humanly possible for a catcher to get up and throw a ball hard enough to get him out if he gets a decent jump. I just don't, like, he must have left when the ball left the pitcher's hand. Like, I don't see it. So what do you make? Elly de la Cruz, obviously the bat's going to come around, I think, eventually, but does he reach 100 stolen bases in your mind?
So he's on pace right now for 103. Yeah. It's possible he gets to 100. I wouldn't call it likely, partially because, like, he's just not – he doesn't get on base, I don't think, quite enough yet. But that being said, if the hit tool continues to develop, like, the potential here in so many ways is through the roof in terms of, like, production, but also, like, the fun factor with him. I don't know if you caught wind of this on the East Coast, but 2 years in a row now, he's had, like, big-time games on the road at Dodger Stadium. And last year, when he was doing his interviews in Spanish, he was like, he said in English, he goes, "This is my city," in English. And the reporter was like, "This is your city?" And he was kind of just laughed it off. And he's like, "Yeah, this is my city." Well, then he comes back this year and he steals 4 bases in the first game of the series at Dodger Stadium on Thursday. And the Reds reporter, Jim Day, asked him, he goes, "So, Elly, you said last year this is your city, and now here you are again having a great game in LA. Like, what is it about it?" And now he's doing his interviews in English. He's made a huge effort to learn English. It's been kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
And, a lot of what he had to say is he's like, "Well, the first time I visited America, I went to LA." He's like, "So it was the first place I visited." So apparently he just loves the city. And then he was talking about how for him, he plays a ton of GTA. And so because of his experience playing Grand Theft Auto, which takes place in the fictional town of Los Santos, which is modeled after Los Angeles.
Right.
Because of that, he like literally is like, he's like, "I love LA. It's kind of my city. So when I'm here, I like to say it's my city." And apparently he used to tell friends growing up that he was from LA because he had visited LA and he liked it. So, I mean, he's just unrelentingly likable. Like, even when he's ripping my team's heart out in that game on Thursday, you can't help but kind of smile watching him. So, he's just good for baseball. Like, he's one of those players that I want to see have success. Also, I was in the building last year in Cincinnati when he hit his first major league home run, which happened to be against the Dodgers. And, like, the sound off of his bat is different. Like, he's got that extra it factor to him. So I just love Elly de la Cruz in general. I also want to make a comment on the Reds. If there's one team that has, like, a very poor record that I kind of don't want to give up on right now, they're kind of in that conversation. Like, watching them against the Dodgers this weekend, it just feels like they've had a little bit of Murphy's Law this year. And I didn't even realize this till recently. They're 1-11 in one-run games. Like, that'll turn around. At least it should. So, I'm not saying the Reds are going to win the World Series or win the division, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them fight their way back into contention eventually.
Yeah, no, they're currently 8.5 back sitting in last place in the NL Central. They're about a game and a half back of the Cardinals for that fourth place spot. They're sitting at 19 and 28 at the moment. I agree. I think eventually they're going to come. Like the Reds are going to be one of those teams where like they're very young and very talented, and like eventually they're just going to all get hot at the same time and just go on a tear, I think, for a little bit. And I agree. I think Elly De La Cruz is as likable as they get, or almost as likable as they get in the majors. I want to kind of bring this up too, because you hear so many like baseball talking heads talk about this, right? Where like it is so important for the growth of the game to be about like seeing the best athletes in the world play baseball, right? Because you see so many of these other guys that are super fast and super strong. It's like these really incredible natural born athletes. They all play other sports, right? I mean, and this is no offense really to the guys who are currently in the league, right? But you're not getting the guys that are the fastest or jump the highest, or like they all go play football. They all go play soccer. They all go play basketball. Like so many of those guys they migrate to other sports to capitalize on that athleticism. It's important, I think, for guys like Elly De La Cruz in the sport, because you bring up a good point. Watching him makes the game fun inherently. It just does, right? Because you just see him on the field. He's 6'5", 200 pounds. He's some 21-year-old kid who is just like, he just looks different than everybody else, right? He's bigger, faster, stronger. You just said it yourself, right? Like the sound off his bat is different, right? If the hit tool does develop, right, to a point where like, because he's hitting 256 right now. If he gets to a point where he's hitting 280, 290 at some point in his career, right, he's still a really young player. If he gets the hit tool to somewhere in that range, I mean, like you're talking about like not even just one of the most exciting players in baseball, but one of the best players in baseball, because if he can get on base 36, 37% of the time, like I would imagine, and I'm sure there's a stat for this. You're better at, these, deep stats more, you're better at that than I am. But like how often a player getting on base translates to them scoring, right? There's got to be a stat for that, right? Or is that not a thing?
I'm sure that there is somewhere that's tracked. I don't know where to find it. I'm sure if we took the time, we could find it.
Yeah.
But he's got to be near the top of that list.
That's what I'm saying.
Those are going to be the best base running guys, or guys who have the best hitters behind them, right? Like,
right.
I'm guessing Mookie Betts is really high on that list with Shohei and Freddie right behind him. And, like Michael Harris of the Braves, I could see being really high on that list too.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a fun stat to think about, right? It's kind of the old like table setters type of deal. But no, I mean, you're right. I think there are certain players that like athletically just look and feel different to watch. Like De La Cruz is in that category. Aaron Judge, right? Shohei Ohtani. Like there's certain guys around the league that just look different. Paul Skeens, by the way, we talked about it last week. He's in that category.
Absolutely.
So it's good to have players like that in the game. Obviously part of what makes baseball special is you can't just be athletic, right? Like being athletic is never enough in baseball, whereas in other sports, like frankly, it can be. Sure. So, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
So I think it is interesting to kind of point out that, listen, it's quite the spectacle to watch, at least, especially right now. I mean, this is, like I said, I think it kind of gets lost in the whole process, right? Because there are a lot of people, I'm sure, that expected him to burst onto the scene and just kind of start taking over the league in some sense. He's 22 years old. You know what I mean? He's got a long, long future ahead of him. I mean, he's not even close to his prime, really. I mean, he's just getting started. And if those tools again, like we've said, if those two tools continue to develop, he's going to be scary in the league for a long time.